All right, so you ready for another deep dive this week?
Always ready to dive in.
Okay, well, buckle up then, because we've got some big games coming up, starting with the College Football Playoff National Championship.
Ah, yes. Can't forget about that one.
And then we jump over to the NBA. We've got some really interesting matchups there as well.
Be a good week.
Should be, we're going to be checking out Bleacher Nation, Bogman picks, betting pros.
Some of the best.
Yeah, some of the best in the business to help us, sort of unpack all of this and see what we can learn and what we can expect from these games.
Give us those insights.
Yeah, exactly. Love the insights.
So let's kick things off with that CSP National Championship. We've got Ohio State coming in 13-2 against Notre Dame at 14-1. Ohio State's the slight favorite here, a 9.5-point spread and an over-under of 45.5 points. Now, Bleacher Nation, they're really emphasizing Ohio State's defense here.
It's a tough defense.
It is a tough defense. I mean, it's been a force all season.
For sure. But,
Notre Dame's offense has proven to be resilient. They've faced tough defenses before, and they've found ways to score. Plus, it's a national championship game.
Yeah.
It brings a whole other level of intensity, motivation for these players.
Right. So are we underestimating Notre Dame's ability to really overcome that pressure from a defense like that? I mean, what does that mean for someone who's trying to make sense of this?
I think it means you have to look beyond just the raw numbers. Notre Dame may not, they may not have the flashiest offense,
Right.
but they're disciplined, they're efficient, they've got a quarterback who can make plays under pressure, they have a running game that can grind out yards. It's not always just about, putting up, a ton of points. It's about, controlling the tempo of the game and keeping, that Ohio State offense off the field.
Okay, so Bogman picks seems to think this is going to be a low-scoring game.
Yeah.
Potentially ending somewhere in the 20-10, 24-10 range.
That's bold.
That's pretty bold.
It is bold, but I think their reasoning makes sense. They're looking at, both teams' defensive strengths, and they're factoring in, some of Notre Dame's offensive limitations, especially with, some of their key players battling injuries.
Okay, I see their point. But then we have betting pros kind of throwing a wrench into things here.
Yeah.
By favoring Notre Dame to win and for the games to go over on points.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile these two completely different viewpoints? It's like they're looking at two totally different games.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of sports, right? It's not always clear cut and dry. I think betting pros might be, factoring in some of the public sentiment, maybe there's a groundswell of support for Notre Dame, and they're picking up on that.
So they think maybe people are overestimating Ohio State, and there's value there in betting on the underdog.
Possibly, yeah. They might also be looking at that over under and seeing an opportunity there. If they think Notre Dame can put up enough points to at least keep it close, even in a loss,
right,
that over could hit.
Interesting. Okay, so for someone who's listening, what should they be watching for early on to kind of get a sense, okay, which way is this game going?
I think early on, pay attention to how Notre Dame's offensive line holds up against that Ohio State pass rush.
Okay.
Can they give their quarterback enough time to make throws?
Right.
Can they establish a running game to control the clock? I think those early indicators will really give us some clues as to, whether this is going to be, a defensive struggle or if we might be in for a higher scoring affair.
All right, so let's move from the gridiron to the hardwood now. We've got a packed NBA schedule coming up with some really compelling matchups. Let's start with the Dallas Mavericks. They are 6.5-point favorites against the Charlotte Hornets. Kyrie Irving now leading the charge.
Yeah, Irving's arrival has definitely, shifted the dynamics in Dallas. He's a game changer on the offensive end, and the Mavericks, I think they're looking to make some noise in the Western Conference with him, running the show now.
But the Hornets have won 3 out of the last 4.
Yeah, they've been playing well.
Do you think they have a realistic chance of pulling off an upset here, or are the Mavericks just too strong?
They've been playing with a lot of energy and confidence lately, no doubt. And, any team with a winning record, can be dangerous on any given night.
Sure. Okay, but realistically, do you see them, covering that spread?
Well, 6.5 points is that's a significant spread. And it'll depend on a few factors, Can the Hornets contain Kyrie Irving, limit his scoring opportunities?
Right.
Can they hit their shots from outside and keep pace with that Mavericks offense?
Yeah.
If they can do those things, I think they've got a shot.
So it sounds like you're not ruling them out completely, but you're leaning more towards Dallas at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dallas is the safer bet,
Okay.
but it'll be interesting to see how this game unfolds. So.
All right. Let's move on to another intriguing matchup here. We get the Detroit Pistons, 8-point underdogs against the high-flying Houston Rockets.
I know, yeah.
I'm not sure I see them pulling off an upset here.
The Rockets have been one of the most exciting teams to watch this season, and their offense can be explosive, But the Pistons have been playing, respectable basketball, and I think that 8-point spread might be a bit generous.
So you're saying there's potential for the Pistons to at least cover the spread, even if they don't win outright.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean they've shown resilience, a willingness to compete, even against some of the tougher opponents. It's all about managing expectations.
All right, what about Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks? He's got an over-under of 37.5 points, rebounds, and assists going up against the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden. Do you think he hits the over here?
Yeah. Young he's got a history of big performances in New York.
He does.
He seems to thrive on that big stage and really elevate his game against the Knicks.
So you're thinking he's going to be motivated to put on a show here?
I think so. I mean, the Knicks, they can be tough defensively.
Yeah.
But Young he's such a dynamic scorer and playmaker. If he gets hot from outside and finds his teammates for easy baskets, I think that over seems very attainable.
Okay, let's talk about the Boston Celtics. They are favored to win against the Golden State Warriors, who are dealing with a bunch of injuries.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Seems like a pretty straightforward pick here.
It does, especially with, Steph Curry and Draymond Green being out for Golden State. But the Warriors, even shorthanded, they're a proud team with championship DNA. They've got players who can step up and make things happen.
So you're saying this might be closer than people think?
I wouldn't expect a blowout. I mean, the Celtics should control the game.
Right.
But the Warriors are always capable of making things, interesting.
All right, let's wrap up this part of our deep dive with a look at a couple of underpicks that kind of caught our attention here. We've got the Jazz and Pelicans with an under of 233, and then the Bulls and Clippers with an under of 231.5. What's the thinking behind these picks?
I think with the Jazz, they're missing some key players, which could limit their scoring potential. And the Pelicans, haven't exactly been, an offensive juggernaut this season.
So you're seeing a potential for a low scoring, kind of grinded out type of game.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And as for the Bulls and Clippers, they're both playing on back-to-back nights, which could, lead to some fatigue and lower scoring overall.
Right, tired legs usually translate to missed shots.
Exactly. Plus, both teams, I mean, they've been known to play at a slower pace this season, so that could also, contribute to a lower final score. It's interesting how much emphasis is being put on Ohio State's defense heading into this championship game. I mean, Bleacher Nation really went, they dove into their stats, their personnel.
They made a compelling case for sure, but I'm still a bit skeptical. I mean, Notre Dame has faced tough defenses all year, and they found ways to score. How big of a factor do you really think that defense will be?
I mean, their defense is definitely formidable, but Notre Dame's offense, I don't think should be underestimated. I mean, they've shown resilience and creativity all season long. They're not they're not a high-flying, explosive offense, but they're efficient, they're disciplined, they've got a quarterback who can make, smart decisions under pressure. Their running backs are tough to bring down.
Okay, but Ohio State's defense is ranked among the best in the nation. I mean, do you really think that Notre Dame can move the ball consistently against them?
It'll be a challenge, no doubt. But remember, Notre Dame, they've faced tough defenses before. They've gone up against some of the best defensive lines in the country and found ways to generate points. It's not always pretty, but they find a way.
So what should our listener be watching for to kind of get a sense of how this offensive matchup might play out?
I think early on, pay attention to Notre Dame's offensive line. Can they, can they protect their quarterback? Give him enough time to make reads, find open receivers? Can they, create running lanes for their backs to, pick up some tough yards? If they can win those battles up front, Notre Dame has a chance to keep this game close.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So even if they're not putting up a ton of points, if they can control the clock, keep Ohio State's offense off the field,
Right.
they could still be in a good position to win this game.
Exactly. It's all about strategy and execution. Notre Dame, they don't need to win a shootout. They need to play their game, control the tempo, and capitalize on any opportunities, that Ohio State defense might give them.
Okay, that's a really insightful way to look at it. It's not just about points, it's about controlling the game.
Right, and that's why these predictions are so interesting. You have Bogman Picks kind of leaning towards a low-scoring game, while Betting Pros is calling for the over. I mean, it all comes down to, how you weigh the different factors and which narrative, you believe in.
So as a viewer, like what should I be paying attention to?
I think look at how Notre Dame's quarterback handles the pressure. Watch how their offensive line holds up against that Ohio State defensive front. I think those early indicators will really give you a sense of, which way this game might go.
Okay, let's shift gears back to the NBA. We were talking about the Mavericks and the Hornets. Do you think there are any key matchups within that game that could determine the outcome?
Absolutely. You got Kyrie Irving versus LaMelo Ball. That's going to be, a fascinating matchup to watch.
Right.
Both players incredibly talented, and they can take over a game.
Right. So it's battle of the point guards. Who do you think has the edge in that matchup?
Irving is the more experienced player and arguably the more polished scorer, but Ball is, a rising star, incredible playmaking ability.
We see you're saying it's kind of a tough one to call.
It really is. I mean, if Irving gets hot early, starts hitting those, tough shots that he's known for, the Mavericks, they'll be tough to beat. But if Ball can create opportunities for his teammates, disrupt Irving's rhythm a little bit, the Hornets could definitely make it a competitive game.
Okay. Let's move on to the Pistons and the Rockets. You mentioned that 8-point spread might be a bit generous. What makes you think the Pistons have a chance to cover?
Well, the Pistons, they've been playing, better than their record indicates. They've got some young, talented players who are starting to, kind of gel. And they've been competitive in recent games against some, pretty tough opponents.
But the Rockets have been on fire lately. I mean, their offense is practically unstoppable.
That's true. But even the best offenses, they have off nights.
Right.
And the Pistons have shown that they can play some tough defense. If they can, slow down the Rockets' pace a little bit, make them work for their shots, they might be able to, keep the game close enough to cover the spread.
All right, so you're kind of seeing this as a potential trap game for the Rockets.
It could be. The Pistons are playing with nothing to lose, while, the Rockets might be looking ahead to their next opponent. It wouldn't be the first time an underdog pulled off an upset in a situation like this.
I like it. Always fun to root for the underdog. Speaking of underdogs, what about Trae Young and the Hawks going up against the Knicks? He's got a pretty high over-under, for points, rebounds, and assists.
Yeah, 37.5. That's a challenging number, but Young has a history of exceeding expectations, especially against the Knicks.
You mentioned that he seems to thrive in Madison Square Garden.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is it about that environment that brings out the best in him?
I think it's the bright lights, the big stage, the energy of the crowd. Young, he feeds off that atmosphere. He's a showman, and he loves to put on a performance.
So you're predicting a big night for Trae Young.
I think so. I mean, the Knicks are a good defensive team, but Young is just such a talented, scorer and passer. If he gets going early, it could be a long night for the Knicks.
Okay. Let's wrap up this segment with a look at the Celtics and the Warriors. The Celtics are the clear favorites here, but you mentioned that the Warriors, even with injuries, could make it interesting.
Yeah, the Warriors they're a proud team, championship pedigree. They're not just going to roll over, just because they're missing some key players. They've got guys on that bench who are, hungry to prove themselves. They'll be playing with a lot of heart, a lot of intensity.
So you're not expecting a blowout, but you still think the Celtics will win.
Right. I mean, the Celtics are, on paper the more talented team, and they are playing at home, but the Warriors are capable of making this a competitive game, especially, if they can, get hot from outside.
It sounds like you're saying this game could go either way.
Not exactly. I still think the Celtics are the more likely winners here, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Warriors kept it close. They're a team that never gives up, and they've pulled off, upsets before.
Okay. Before we move on to our final thoughts, let's touch on those underpicks one more time. The Jazz and Pelicans and the Bulls and Clippers. You mentioned fatigue as a potential factor in both games.
Yeah, back-to-back games, they can really take a toll on a team, especially on the road. Players get tired, shots don't fall as easily, and the overall pace of the game just tends to slow down.
So you're thinking that fatigue could lead to lower scoring games.
It's definitely a factor to consider, and when you combine that with the fact that both the Jazz and the Bulls are missing some key players, those under bets they start to look even more appealing.
Okay, great insights. I'm starting to see why those under picks might be worth a closer look. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, analyzing these matchups from all sorts of different angles, but now it's time to kind of put it all together. What's the one prediction from all of this that really surprised you?
I think that Betting Pros pick for the CFP National Championship really stood out to me.
Yeah.
Favoring Notre Dame in the over.
Yeah.
It seems to go against the grain of what a lot of experts are predicting. Okay. It's a bold call, and it makes you wonder if they're seeing something that the others aren't.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. That one's definitely a head scratcher for sure. On the NBA side, I'm intrigued by the Pistons potentially covering against the Rockets.
Yeah.
I mean, Houston has been dominant, but 8 points is a lot to give up, and the Pistons have been playing with a lot of grit lately.
Yeah, it all comes back to, how we evaluate these teams in these games.
Yeah.
Do we get caught up in the narrative surrounding these high-profile teams, or do we dig a little deeper, look at some of the underlying trends?
That's a great point. It's a reminder that in sports, just like in life, it's important to, question assumptions that look beyond the surface.
Exactly. And as you watch these games unfold, keep those critical thinking skills engaged. Pay attention to the little details, the momentum shifts, the unexpected plays that can change the course of a game.
And most importantly, enjoy the thrill of the unknown. I mean, sports are at their best when they keep us guessing. And this week's lineup, I think, promises to deliver on that front.
So as you settle in to watch these games, we want to leave you with this. Which prediction do you find most surprising, and what factors are influencing your own assessment? Let us know your thoughts. Let's keep this conversation going.
That's it for this deep dive. We'll be back next week with more insights and analysis on the biggest games and matchups. Until then, enjoy the games and happy watching.